Reef DVM's coming at you with what you do after a storm damage. Guys, we had a tornado miss us by about 2,600 feet on the farm and hit the neighbor's farm, and it sucked because the green apples all came off the tree. We picked what was left, and we lost a lot of red apples too. So believe it or not, there's green and red apples here. We're shoving them into roasters, and we're not going to waste these apples. I get it; they're not ripe. It's the third week of July, and we're going to save them. We're gonna make them into sauce. This is what you do on the farm. You don't lose your crop if you can help it. So you've got all these roasters, basically just filled up with apples. These are pretty hard apples. They're not the sweetest yet. I get that. There's green and red in it, even though they all look green because they're all early. What we're going to do is we're going to take each roaster, and we're going to add about a cup of water to them. There's no rocket science here, folks. Just add a little bit of water to each roaster to give it some moisture to keep the apples from sticking to the bottom of it. I really don't care exactly how much. Maybe the bigger roaster is a cup and a half. The smaller roaster is just a cup. But we're going to add some water to them, and then we're going to fire up the oven, and we're gonna bake them and make them soft so we can save them and turn them into something that we can quickly save. Now, you can save these apples in the freezer after you make the sauce. You can save them in the refrigerator for a while, and certainly you can can them, and that's going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick these in the oven. I'm going to watch them so that when they start to fall apart and split, we use them, but typically it's going to be about, I don't know, probably 30 minutes at 350. It might be a little longer because these aren't ripe apples. So if you're using, normal traditional red apples that are ripe, it might go a lot quicker for you. So right now I'm going to set the ovens at 350. And then once I have them at 350, I'm going to let these things go, and I'll check them in about 30 minutes. And if they're good, I'm going to take them out. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour. But I'm going to get them a lot softer so that we can work with them. So while they're cooking and getting that going, I'm going to get the KitchenAid out. You can do this by hand mashing them. You could do it with a grinder like this. We're just going to take our big KitchenAid and put the kind of grinder strainer attachment on it. I personally think this works the best for the tool we have. But I mean, even mashing them up with a potato masher and running them through a pumpkin sieve would work. So however you want to kind of strain the seeds and the stems and the skin out is kind of up to you. But this is the fastest way for us. You got a little plunger on top, and you got this little worm gear that sticks in the front of this with a little metal screen, and it works great. So again, that worm gear has got to go in first, and then put the screen on, and then from there, we're going to make some applesauce once these things are baked soft. A lot of people, before they bake them, peel the apples. You can go through that and do that, but with this type of machine, you just don't have to, which is kind of nice. So putting it here together, and then I'm going to get the girls in and kind of turn them loose, and we're going to go save all this. I think all in all, we ended up with 3.5 5-gallon pails of apples on the ground after the EF1 tornado went through. So, and again, I'm just not going to lose them. I'm gonna make sauce here. So it's a good thing to do. We've been cutting trees for the last 3 days, and now it's time to get this done. We just, by the way, picked up the apples and threw them in the refrigerator until we could get to them. That way the bruises didn't get worse and they didn't deteriorate more. As far as how we like to make our applesauce, I have a recipe from the grandmas. It's a cinnamon-based applesauce, so that's what we're going to do. So here we are. We're going to take these out of the oven. This is what they look like. See how they're starting to crack and split and fall apart? Now, some of them aren't because they're smaller and tougher. So you could cook them longer if you wanted to, but they're definitely soft enough to start going in the machine. So that's where I'm headed with them. Once you can barely touch them and they're just kind of mush like this, man, I'm ready to make sauce. And notice I'm not separating out the reds from the greens. I'm just mixing them all together to get as best flavor as I can. You can push them in, get them started. in my situation here, I'm just gonna kind of get these things rocking and rolling with the plunger here, and then I'll turn the kids loose, and then they'll just quick take over. As you can see, it starts coming out the end. So the girls here are making the sauce for me. I've taken a little potato masher and mashed it down a little bit for them in the containers, so it's a little easier for them to scoop up. And then they're just plopping it up in the machine, plunging it in, and the sauce comes out the bottom and the crap comes out the end. And this is what we end up with, all these tubs of applesauce. And my wife comes in, and she's going to take this big metal tin, and she's going to make a batch at a time. She's going to flavor it up, so there's a little bit of sugar in it. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky as to how much sugar you want to put in. Typically, we wouldn't put this much sugar in for the red sweet apples because they would be a sweeter apple and we wouldn't need to. But for this batch, it does take 4 cups of sugar, and then that's a tablespoon measure that she's got in the ground cinnamon, and that's a whole tablespoon. And I would say it's kind of heaped. You're going to see her do that a couple times, so it's probably like 3 tablespoons. But the recipe does call for a heaping tablespoon of cinnamon twice. And then that's vanilla. And again, back to the tablespoon measure, and she's going to dump several of those in there too. And a lot of people, don't like vanilla in their applesauce. Don't put it in, folks. This batch that she's doing right here is going to make 7 quart jars of applesauce. So for a 7-quart jar applesauce recipe, we typically use probably about 2 cups of sugar, 2 heaping tablespoons of cinnamon, and probably a tablespoon of vanilla. But again, we know the flavor already of these apples. We know they're not ripe. We understand they came down in storm damage, so we're going with the 4 cups of sugar because we know that gives us the good flavor that we can taste. Still going with the 2 on the cinnamon and the 2 on the vanilla. And then we're putting it into our big roaster, which has water down in the bottom between the 2 roasting pans a little bit. And then we're putting it at about 300 degrees, and we're stirring it constantly so it doesn't burn. And we're getting it back up to temperature, nice and hot, so it's just about ready to boil. And then we're jarring this stuff up. And then we're going to take that and we're going to hot water process it for in the canner, and then we'll be done. I'm not really going to go through all the effort on the hot water processing. That gets a little bit tedious, and you guys have seen it before in our other videos. You're certainly welcome to look at those videos if you want to see it, but I'm not gonna bore you with that. So we're gonna ladle these into the jars, folks, and then we're gonna put the new rings and seals on them, and we are gonna fill them up quite full. As you can see, we're going to try and get as much sauce in each jar as we can. We're, 6, 7 of us at dinner every night, so we go through some applesauce. And again, each one of those big silver batches is going to be a 7-quart batch of them, so we should be able to get plenty of applesauce out of them, which should be great for the family, okay? And then when we're done processing, this is what it looks like. And again, you can process these and they'll seal down here in a few minutes and they'll be good for years to come. So this is what we do. You have storm damage apples, we make applesauce, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and support us. We'll keep putting out great videos like this.